Hi everyone, it's me Darlene. I am here to do a little bit of crumb quilting. It has been a bizarre day. I would actually feel better if I could talk about it, but I don't think it's a good time to talk about it. I want to just get a video done. I have been trying so hard all day, and every time I start a video I just go off topic, and it's just been one of those days. It's like I need the peanut gallery so bad, but yet I'm like, as if they want to hear all this. So I'm gonna try to just do some crumb quilting, answer some questions that you guys have had about this. I am sorry that I don't have another video in addition to this, because I know there are a whole lot of you out there who don't love this series. You don't love the quilting things, and you like it when I throw other stuff in. And I always try. I try to not have it be just a quilting video. But just put it this way. If I didn't do a quilting video tonight, there would be no video. It's not like it's taking the place of a tag along or something like that. There just would be no video. So the videos you like, I do them as much as I possibly can. The quilting stuff does not take the place of those. Again, quilting I can pretty much always do. I always enjoy it. The other things are a lot of work, and you have to be in the right frame of mind, and today it wasn't happening. I tried very, very hard, but it just didn't work. So I'm going to do some crumb quilting. First of all, I want to answer some questions that I've been getting. Big question is, what's the difference between a crumb quilt and a crazy quilt? And the other options are a scrappy quilt. And here's the way that I define these things. I mean, there's probably other ways, but to me, a crumb quilt is made with crumbs, scraps, supposed to be tiny scraps of fabric. Things that, like I said, would normally just get tossed. You know, things like this, or little strips like this. You know, just stuff that normally goes in the trash. And you put little pieces together like this. In the olden days, crumb quilts were made with the crumbs, but now we have fancy ways to use bigger pieces and make it look like they started out small. There are some people that would say that is not a crumb quilt. There are some quilters out there that are so by the rule that it's like, OMG, it's scary if you piss them off. To me, if your quilt ends up looking like it was made with tiny pieces and some larger pieces, and that it's all just all over the place, I don't care how it got there. If it looks like a crumb quilt, it's a crumb quilt, because those pieces are now small. So it's small pieces, and it's sewn in all different ways, and normally like kind of patched together to look like weirdness. A crazy quilt, I consider a crazy quilt something where you start with something in the center, could be 4-sided, 5-sided, 6-sided, whatever, and you work in around. You go around, you add a piece, The pieces get bigger as you go. The pieces are not necessarily crumbs. You buy fabric and cut it into strips, and everything's wonky. You want angles, you want weirdness in that way. Crazy quilts are also known to be made with multiple fabrics, not just cotton. You can use satin. You could put pieces of corduroy, denim, velvet, all kinds of things like that. And then you can also embellish them and make them as ornate as you want. If you go on Google, just type in images of crazy quilts, you are going to see some things that will blow your mind. But I generally think of them as working in the round. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but the pieces are not crumb size. They're bigger. They're usually different fabrics, and they're usually embellished. So that's what a crazy quilt is. Scrap quilts or scrappy quilts, that's sort of like a crumb quilt, but it's made with bigger pieces. Like you might have, let's just say this is one piece. This is actually folded, but let's say you have a piece like this. Well, that's a good start to a scrappy quilt, because a scrappy quilt, you're just putting like maybe 3x3 or 5x5 pieces together. Doesn't have to be the same size. It can be different sizes, but sewn together. It's kind of like a crumb quilt, only it's more orderly. Like usually you're making rows and the pieces are bigger. So that is a scrappy quilt. Now a strip quilt can also be scrappy, but it's made with strips, and sometimes it's like the whole width of the quilt is a strip, and you can do strip after strip after strip. Some people make them all the same width and sew nice and evenly. You can have it different widths. You can make them wonky so that it looks like crooked on the way up, and they don't have to be the entire width all the same. You can still put pieces together and call it a strip quilt. What's the other one I wanted to touch on? If I think of it, I'll let you know. But a crumb quilt, small pieces, put together in weird ways, and that's what you got. I like to cheat and use bigger pieces of fabric because it's easier to sew bigger pieces, and not everybody has a lot of crumbs. So sometimes you have to actually buy fabric and make the fabric look like crumbs. Now, who in their right mind wants to take like a 1/4 yard of fabric and cut that all into little tiny pieces and then put those back together somehow? I don't. If you have a big piece, start with the big piece. I'm going to show you again tonight. I have shown you before, but I've been asked so much. I want to show you guys again how to do strip sets and some chain piecing. And tonight I'm going to start fresh with all fresh fabrics that are bigger and just show you how we can start with bigger pieces and make them look tiny in the end. So let's just get going. I'm just bothered because I can't think of the other kind of quilts that I wanted to talk about, but that's nothing compared to the things that bothered me today. So let me turn the camera down a little bit and we'll just get busy. I have to edit. I'm not in the mood. All right, I'm going to make a strip set. Now you can see this is a strip. That would be a nice size crumb, but I don't need it to be this long, so I'm just going to cut it in half right here, and that's going to be my base. I only need one straight side. And I have a straight side. This side is curved a little bit, but that's okay. I just need one straight side. If it wasn't straight on either side, I could trim it and make one side straight. Do I have enough thread before I do all this? Yes, I do. I'm just trying to pull some other pieces that you might have as crumbs. You know, a little piece like this. Now this piece of fabric is big, gigantic. So why don't I, for the heck of it, just cut something off it like this size. So I'm going to have that. And I have like an odd piece like this. Again, this isn't tiny, so this is easy to work with. I have a square one like that also. And even though I'm introducing some fabrics that I don't have in my other blocks, that's okay because I will throw some in that match the others. So I have this piece. Now you can see it's wrinkled. I don't care. I have the selvage there. I don't care. I have a piece like this. I have a piece like this. So none of these things are really tiny. Now these do qualify as crumbs. I'm not saying that if you make a block with big pieces that you can't call it a crumb quilt. I don't care what you call anything. You call it anything you want. But typically a crumb quilt is made with crumbs and bigger pieces are cut down to make smaller pieces. There are also postage stamp quilts, and I hope that nobody ever cut little tiny postage stamp pieces. I don't know. I haven't attempted that one yet. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take a strip. Now, it doesn't have to be narrow. It can be wider. I just happen to have this narrow. I'm just going to attach things to it, right sides together. And all I need is a straight edge on the pieces that I add here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this, is this right side or wrong side? Wrong glasses. All right, like this. 2 pieces. Here we go. And then I'm going to be adding another piece so I can stop wherever I feel like stopping. Now let's look at this guy. This guy has odd sides, and I can choose any side as long as it's straight. I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to put that down, and I'm going to continue to sew. Now let's add this guy. Now this part's wrinkled, it's got the selvage. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to use this side because that side is perfect. It has no selvage and it's straight. Now when I say straight, I don't mean it has to be at a right angle. I just mean that this line is straight, and it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I sometimes have a crooked line and I can still put it there and I just sew a straight line. It's just nice to have it be straight because then it's like a guide. Now this isn't going to fit exactly. Oh, it is! It's going to fit. I call this filling the strip. If I'm sewing on a strip, I don't care if there's an inch left, I'm going to find a piece, and that's where little crumbs do come in handy, because I do like to put together tiny pieces. Not all of them, but I do enjoy doing that. So I end up with something like this. Now what I do is there are times that I could just sit here and I will do one strip set like this after another, after another, after another. I do not work on one block at a time. For instance, I'm making 6-inch blocks. I make all kinds of pieces before I start putting them together and cutting them into 6-inch blocks because I want a variety. So I'm in no hurry to create one block, and I don't ever want it planned. So now I'm just going to press this open. Now at this point, I can trim right here where there's the selvage. Now you can see these two pieces are sewn together, you know, and I like the width of those two strips. It doesn't have to be any narrower. So I'm going to just cut this. I have this piece, but it can be made smaller. We'll show you that after. Now this one is at an angle, so I stay with the angle and just cut it that way, and this is straight, so straight across. So we have a piece like this now. At this point, if I want to cut the selvage off this piece, I can. I pressed it. Let's just cut it. I don't have to trim this yet if I don't want to. Let's just cut these off. So I have a piece like this. And then I got this big guy. Now, we obviously aren't going to be using a big piece like this, not me, because I like smaller pieces. And if you're new to this series, go watch episodes 1, 2, and 3, and you will see here are some of my finished blocks. I think I have 10, and I have a bunch more that can be made. So you can see this is about as big as I get, and even there, you know, that's kind of big, but I have a lot, like, look at there. See the little tiny pieces in there? Now, I didn't necessarily put a piece that small. I'll show you how we do those things. I might show you only the strip set tonight and then do chain piecing tomorrow or tomorrow night or something, because my brain is tired. All right, so let's say for the heck of it, though, that we're not sure what we want to do with this. One thing I can do right now is cut it in half. Save this for later. And let's say for this one that I really would like just a little strip of that fabric showing. Let me get another piece of fabric. Alright, so I'm just pulling out this little piece now. If I want this to be very narrow, instead of cutting it first and then having to deal with that edge, I'm just going to take my straight edge and lay it where I want. Now see, if I sew this down and flip it back, this is going to be narrow. So I'm just going to lay that piece there, and I'm going to sew. And it's okay if it's wonky. Wonky is good. Now that those two things are sewn together, I'm just going to trim this part off. And now I will just press this open. So you can see it's narrower. It's actually much wider than I expected, but it's narrower. Now I can trim this off if I want. And on this side I can too, but what I do when I'm trimming something that I know can be used, like obviously you don't want something small like this, because once you have seam allowances involved, there is no more fabric at all. But for an example, this little piece here, that can be used. That would be visible in a crumb quilt. But if I cut this little piece off, it's going to get lost. And I know I've shown you guys this, but not everybody has seen those videos. So I'm going to attach something to it. And I don't care what. Like, look, I'm going to take this big piece of pink here, and I'm just going to put that on the end of this piece of green. If I had a small piece, I would go ahead and use a small piece, but I'm showing you that we can do things with big pieces and make them look small. Now when I open this, I can cut, and that green will be attached to that. So let's go ahead and cut here. And then if I want, I'm just going to go like this and trim. So you can see that I turned that little piece into something manageable. I didn't have to deal with just this little tiny piece. I sewed it onto something else, and now this is a manageable size piece. Again, I wouldn't want to do an entire quilt with this, but I like to have some of those in there. I don't know, I just do. Let me show you another thing. I'm going to just cut this selvage off. Let's say you have a fairly wide piece, but it's not too long, but you're going to do it on both sides. Let me show you what I mean. Now this isn't perfectly straight, but it's straight enough for me. If you need things to be straight, you go ahead and cut them. So let's say I'm going to put this piece here, and I'm going to sew. Then you can start adding things that you already have. So let's add this little guy. Just going to put him down and sew. Put a piece of blue. Ooh, that's pretty even. Now I need to fill the strip, so I'm going to find something to put there. I don't care if I have to just snip a piece of this. I'm going to put that right there. Now I'm going to turn around and do the same on the other side. Let's do another piece of this blue. See, I'm not afraid to go matchy-matchy because I know I'm going to be making a lot of blocks and those pieces will get shuffled. Now let's look at this. Like this, I don't need all this color here, so I'm just going to cut that like this. And let's make this be the end. Like, I'm not going to attach it there, I'm going to attach it here. So I'm going this way. Now what can we do here? And let's add this guy that we did. See, these are all pieces that we just did. And again, I'm going to go this way. Alright, I'm going to go press these open, each on their own side. I know I'm having a hard time staying under the camera. I don't have the best angle. Oh, that would have helped. I'm telling you, it's been a bad day. Video-wise, not life-wise. Life-wise has been okay. Alright, so I have some pieces on this side of the strip and some on this side of the strip. I'm just going to cut the strip. I don't have to cut it in half. I can have it narrower on this side or on this side. I'm just going to go kind of in the middle. There. And now I'm going to cut them off like that. And that, so it gives us some pieces, and here, and here, and here. Now look, some of our pieces are growing already, and you know, we started with big pieces, but we're making it look not so big. Now even this can go in this direction. We can cut that off. There's just so much that we can do. And this is when you can start to put things together that don't even, you know, match up at all. Like, let's say I'd like this here, and then I will trim it here. Well, this is where you can start doing your string piecing. I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to send it through. That's all I'm doing for sewing on that one. I will move it just a little bit. Just going to leave it right there. Now let's get 2 more pieces and send them through. I'll do this. I'm going to attach this to this. And you can see my edge isn't straight, but I know I'm just going to sew a straight line. And you only sew for as long as you have 2 fabrics. I don't need to continue sewing because I would only be sewing on one, and I don't want to continue sewing there because I need that piece for something else. 2 more together. Let's put this and this together. Ooh, let's put that together. I like it when things are kitty corner. And again, you could sit and do that and just send two pieces. Just keep sending those through. Then when you're done, you're just going to snip them apart. And you can press them with the iron or finger press or do whatever you want to do. Now, I'm going to go press these and then I'll show you the next thing that I do. So let's look at the pieces that I just put together. This, we've got all kinds of wackadoodle stuff going on. I like the size of these pieces. This is just way too big for me. So what I would end up doing is probably putting another piece here or just trimming it. At this point, I can just trim it because it's very manageable. Even though this piece is narrow, it's attached to something. So we have a lot of fabric to hold when we're maneuvering it under the needle. And I'm not going to salvage this because it's very tiny and it will get lost in the seam allowances. So we have a nice little block like this. This is a rounded edge, so I'm just going to trim that, straighten it out like that. And again, I'm actually going to keep that little bugger. This is an awful lot, but I don't need to worry about that right now. Now this guy, oh, let's use this one as an example. See how there's a big chunk here missing? Now, many people think, well, I can just, add a piece here. You know what? You actually can. Like, let's say you wanted to put that there. The thing is that it's hard to stitch on because you have a corner. You have a couple of options. You could seam rip this piece, pull it back, attach this to this, because if you seam rip it, it would be free and you could make a stitch. Then you could flip it and lift the whole thing this way and sew it. The other thing that you can do, which I haven't mentioned yet, and I will be showing that after this crumb quilt, you can do top stitching and almost like applique if you want. It's a crumb quilt. You can do whatever you want. But if you wanted to, you could just fold this down and press it, and fold this edge down and press it, and just lay that right there and do some top stitching. I absolutely love this method. I love it. It is the easiest way to make a puzzle. And I just think it adds so much character because you see the threads and then you can decide like if you want a contrasting thread or not. Some people do entire quilts like this, but they do it like on a foundation, so every piece is sewn down that way. But you can do it on this. You can have a mixture of, no top stitching and then all of a sudden a piece in there that has some top stitching on it. And if you're using like a black thread to make it stand out, you can also just, top stitch around to make it look like you sewed other pieces onto. The bottom line is anything goes. If you can think it up, you can do it. At least try it. I'm not doing that in this quilt, so I'm just going to be trimming this here. And I can trim this little guy if I want, and he's definitely a throwaway. And then this one has all kinds of things happening. Now here is a piece where, I would want to save that. So let's put this little green here that I had just cut. Let's go like this and do that. I'm going to press it while it's on this so I can have this to hold. And now I can trim here. And those two little pieces are together. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I mean, you can tell that we started out with just big pieces, but we are getting things that look pretty crummy, and they can look even crummier. Like I will probably be cutting that down so that it's like that. I like the looks of small pieces. Now this, I can cut this off. That's a big enough piece, and if I wanted to, just so that I know, I'll feel good. So a piece like this is right up my alley. I just like the sizes of the pieces, and I have scraps that are the beginnings of other blocks. I love that. So I'm going to stop here right now. I feel like I just totally repeated myself. I just hope I can get this video up, because after what I went through today in the YouTube world, I deserve to have a video up. So I'm going to stop now. Please keep asking your Crumb Quilt questions, and do go watch the rest of the series to get caught up. Again, a lot of it will be repeating, but some videos I'll just be making blocks and chatting with you about things. Tonight I did want to just answer some questions and show you again about making strip sets and string piecing. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with more soon. Bye!